Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Junie B. Jones. Whoops, I've got it upside down. Junie B. Jones, Boss of Lunch. In this video, we're going to be reading chapters 6 and 7, where Junie B. actually gets to go in chapter 6 and be boss of lunch. So remember in the last chapter, she was dreaming about being the boss, and this is what she dreamt. It was the funnest dream I ever had. I looked exactly like Mrs. Gutzman, except I had my own face. Also, I had my own apron and my own plastic mitts and my very own hairnet. It was a vision, I tell you. I worked my hardest in the kitchen. I washed all the carrots and I made all the hoagies, plus also I ate all the sugar cookies. After a while, room 1 came into the kitchen with their trays. The children saw how hard I was working. They called me boss of lunch, and they skipped all around me in a happy circle. After that, they carried me all around on their shoulders. May did not participate. I waved at her when I went by, and then a duck flew in and chased her out of the room. That morning, I woke up laughing in my pillow. And guess what else? At school, my day kept on getting better and better because I gave Mr. Scary my permission slip and he let me go to the cafeteria at 10 o'clock a.m. And so I hardly even did much work. Mrs. Gutzman was delighted to see me again. She said I could start helping her very soon, but first she wanted to show me around the kitchen. It was the hugest kitchen I ever even saw. It was a kitchen a giant would have. Look how big everything is, Mrs. Gutzman, I said. Look at that big dishwasher over there, and look at those big refrigerators, and whoa, look at those big sinks, and that big giant freezer. I kept looking. And look at that big can opener, and look at this big floor we're standing on, and look at these big walls, and that big light switch, and those big. Mrs. Gutzman interrupted me. Okay, let's move on, shall we? She said. I'd like you to meet some of the other folks who work here, Junie B. After that, she took me over and introduced me to 6 grown-ups. I waved at those people kind of shy. They waved back. Plus also, they said, welcome. And here is the bestest part of all. Excuse me. After I met all the people, Mrs. Gutzman opened a big drawer and she handed me a giant white apron. My mouth fell open at that hugey thing. You mean I get to wear this, Mrs. Gutzman? I said. I get to wear an apron just like yours? Oh, wowie, wow, wow. This is my dream come true. Mrs. Gutzman winked at me. Well, we sure don't want you to mess up that pretty flowered dress of yours, do we? She said. After that, she pulled the apron over my head and she tied the straps around me. I looked down to the ground. The apron came down to my shoes almost. I twirled and twirled all around. Ooh, I love this apron, Mrs. Gutzman, I said. This apron makes me feel like a princess. Mrs. Gutzman said, I have a good imagination. There's Junie B, her big apron. And there's Mrs. Gutzman back there. I think she enjoys Junie B. Even though Junie B can be a little hard to take sometimes, I think Mrs. Gutzman really likes her. After that, I put on my mitts that she had given me, and I twirled some more. Now I have the whole complete outfit practically, I said real happy. And then, what do you know? All of a sudden, Mrs. Gutzman reached into her apron and she pulled out a hairnet. A hairnet just for me. And she put it on my head. Oh boy, thank you, Mrs. Gutzman, thank you, I squealed. Then I zoomed to the oven and stared at myself in the glass. Look at me, I look just like a real professional lunch maker, I said. After that, I stared and stared at myself some more, and I couldn't even stop. She is so excited. Isn't that fun? I remember when I was in 6th grade, I got chosen to help. There was a big luncheon for the teachers, and a lot of people from the school district were coming to Glendale Fieldbach for lunch. And I was asked to prepare desserts for over 200 people. So I got to go into the teacher's lounge by myself and prepare these little desserts. I remember I had to put little maraschino cherries on the ice cream and whatever, and get them ready to serve. And it was so fun. I still remember it. But they didn't give me a hairnet, but I did wear an apron and plastic gloves. But anyway, so in chapter 7, we're going to read that one next. It's called Jobs. Pretty soon, Mrs. Gutzman told me all about my jobs. You're going to have 3 fun jobs, Junie B, she said. I think you're going to like all of them. She took me to the long counter where the children push their trays, and she showed me where the napkins go. Your first job will be to keep napkins stacked up right here on the countertop. If the napkin piles start to run out, just reach under the counter and get more, okay? Do you think you can do that for me, Junie B? I nodded real fast. Yes, I said. I know I can do that, Mrs. Gutzman, because I'm already familiar with napkins. I smiled real proud. I use napkins at my very own house, and I use them to wipe my mouth after dinner. Plus, also, I sometimes use my sleeve. Mrs. Gutzman looked funny at me. After that, she handed me a sponge and took me to the counter by the sinks. Okay, your second job will be to keep this big counter wiped off, she said. You don't have to clean any big messes, Junie B. Just wipe up any little spills or crumbs you see. I grinned real big. And there she is with the napkins and at the sink with the sponge. Sponges are another job I'm good at, Mrs. Gutzman, I said, because one time in kindergarten I practiced throwing sponges in my toilet, and I didn't even miss the pot, hardly. That was in Junie B. Jones and the Yucky Blucky Fruitcake. Remember when I read that one? That was a good book, too. Mrs. Gutzman's face went kind of pale. Oh, she said, oh my. After that, her voice sounded a little bit worried. Well, there's just one more job I need to tell you about, she said. Do you see that little door over there? That's where the children come in the kitchen to get their lunches. Yes, I said, I see it. Well, when you're not busy with your other jobs, I'd like you to be our lunch greeter, she said. Do you know what a greeter is, Junie B? A greeter smiles at people and says hello. Do you think you could do that? This time I didn't answer her right away, because that job made my stomach feel jumpy inside. Oh, yeah, only there's children who I don't even know at this school, Mrs. Gutzman, I said, kind of shaky. And some of them are big kids, and big kids are not my favorite size. Mrs. Gutzman did a chuckle. Don't worry, Junie B. I think you'll find there are lots of very nice big kids at this school, she said. Could you just give it a try, please? I shrugged my shoulders, kind of weakish. I don't know. Maybe I could, I said. Mrs. Gutzman gave me a pat. That's the spirit, she said. Now there's just one other thing we need to talk about before you get started. And guess what? She reached under the counter and she gave me another pair of mitts. I quick held up my hands for her to see. But I'm already wearing mitts, Mrs. Gutzman. See them? You already gave them to me yesterday. I know, but these are brand new ones, Junie B, she said. Around here, we change our plastic mitts quite often. That's how we keep from spreading germs. We're constantly washing our hands and changing our mitts. He scratched my head. No kidding, really? You mean I'm supposed to wash my hands plus wear mitts? My, that's a lot of hygiene, isn't it? Mrs. Gutzman did a teensy frown, and then she took me to the sink and she washed my hands real good. And after they were dry, she put the new mitts on me. Whoa, these are the cleanest hands I ever saw. You know, we're washing our hands a lot this year. I mean, I've always washed my hands. I've always told people, you know, during this time of the COVID pandemic, the only difference between me now and me pre-COVID is now I just wear a mask everywhere because I wash my hands and stay away from sick people and keep wipes in my car. I've done that for years. People used to laugh at me, but I would wipe down my car every time I'd get out of it. And then especially when I go grocery shopping, because I know all about germs. After that, I skipped back to the counter and I began stacking napkins. Pretty soon, the kitchen started getting smells in it. I sniffed the air. The smells were not delicious. P.U., I said, kind of quiet. Mrs. Gutzman looked over at me. I held my nose. I smell stinkle, I said. Mrs. Gutzman did not look happy. Holding your nose isn't sanitary, Junie B. Now you'll have to change your mitts again. I kept on holding my nose. Yes, but if I let go of my nose, the stinkle will get in my nostrils, I explained, and that smell is not delightful. Mrs. Gutzman looked annoyed at me. What you're smelling is our lunch today, Junie B. We're baking tuna noodle casserole, and we're going to be serving it with carrots and peas. I made a sick face. Ugh, I said, I hate peas. It's a good thing I brought my lunch today, right, Mrs. Gutzman? At least now I will get a decent meal. Mrs. Gutzman looked at me grumpy. She came over and changed my mitts. And after that, I stacked more napkins. And I tried to breathe through just my mouth. And that was kind of rude of her to say that lunch kind of stunk. There are certain things that I don't like the smell of. Can you think of anything you don't like the smell of it when it cooks? Like I love the smell of pumpkin pie. And I love the smell of oatmeal. And when Papa makes fish, when he catches the fish and cleans them and cooks them, I love the smell of that. But I do not like the smell of bacon. That is the worst smell ever. I told Papa that he could cook anything in this house, but he cannot cook bacon in the house. Blech. But you might like bacon. Some people love it, but that's not one of my favorite smells. But I love the smell of tuna noodle casserole. So I don't know, would you eat that? I used to eat that a lot when I was a little girl and I loved it. All righty, well, in our next chapter, we're going to be finishing this Junie B book. We'll be reading chapter 8 and chapter 9. So join us next time for story time. Have a great day.